welcome back into another edition of the post-game press conference, previously on riotradio.ca and now on YouTube, Spotify, and even the post-game media website, where you can find every piece of sports content myself and my co-host do. My name's Ryan Pigeau. I'm alongside John Lodge as usual, and this ambitious program is all about breaking down the recent advancements in the sports world. I think, needless to say, we're getting right into the NHL off the top of the show, right? This time on the presser, it's a bit of a post-mortem, John, on the Maple Leafs' return to play last night. We were both a little aggravated with how things went down, the result. We're going to break down the rest of the MLB and NBA news that's kind of making some waves around the sporting world. But of course, right, everything revolves around the NHL for you and I. So let me tell you, John, here are the three or four things that I want to get into before we actually get into them. We're going to break down, obviously, the Leafs, but it's the surprises, a few surprises around the first 3 days of that return to play, including Carolina taking a surprising 2-0 lead over the Rangers this afternoon. That's quiet, eh? That's already almost
commandingly too.
Yeah, nuts. They're looking really hot. But then I want to get on that Tkatchuk Scheifele incident that happened like opening night and all the kind of debate surrounding that. There's guys on every side of that one. Of course, Montreal Pittsburgh was nuts, wasn't it?
Oh, Montreal Pittsburgh. Did I not tell you that was going to happen? Did I not say that Carey Price was going to be the damn difference in that?
Yeah, well, that's what I've been championing for the last couple of months, right? If for whatever reason Lafreniere ends up in a Pittsburgh jersey, it's Carey Price's fault. That second game of the series is happening, I believe, right now. It's getting underway at 8 o'clock tonight.
Yeah.
So that's the moment we're recording here on August 3rd. The other surprise, it's another 12th seed in in Chicago playing Edmonton. What a crazy series it's been for them so far, and they're going to play at 10:30 tonight. So both of those we're really going to key in on. But that last piece of news I forget to mention, but it makes me feel so good. Dan, if you're listening, Boston getting tossed around just in significant games. You know what I mean? So I'm happy to see them not looking too sharp, and I want to get your take on some of that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, right off the top of my head, I mean, it seems like they're just not ready to go, right?
Yeah.
And I think that anybody sleeping on the Bruins, and these are the words that are coming out of my mouth, anybody sleeping on the Bruins because they lost to Columbus in exhibition and then they opened up with a loss, you're wrong. Boston will be firing on all cylinders by round one of the playoffs, whoever they face. And if it's not Toronto, look out whoever's facing them, because then, Boston's going to be ready, man. Don't sleep on the Bruins.
So I'm going to get your expert opinion on that later on, but I'm also going to get you to be an expert on that MLB news, because I believe the Jays are still hanging around at home waiting for what's happening next. And was it the Cards and the Tigers have their series postponed this afternoon after 13 positive tests come out? That's two brand new teams, right? Just out of the open. So I want to get your expert opinion on the MLB, because I'm not too well read on that. I was away this weekend. You got some crazy texts from me. I was a little out of the out of my tree. But then the Raptors in the NBA, right? They're 2-0 already in their return to play, and I think if we add the math, that's like their sixth straight win. If you want to incorporate way back in March when things grinded to a halt. But opening night in the NBA was sick. So I have a lot to get into. Let's hope we can keep it under an hour, but you know how we work, man. We're usually a little bit over that, if not shooting way over an hour. So as always, lots to get into on all fronts. Lots to get into on all fronts. Slow your roll there, Pigeau. But if you're streaming live, direct any questions you've got to myself, A for Effort, on Twitter, or at John Lodge Music himself. Take us away, buddy. What's your initial take on today's games in the NHL before we do a couple of steps back into the controversies and whatnot? Today, you already mentioned Carolina took an early, commanding 2-0 lead, but let's maybe touch on that and get into Winnipeg, if you don't mind. Give me some takes on those two series.
Oh, well, I believe Svechnikov got a hat trick today.
Yep.
So
first in the franchise's career, or franchise's history, I should say.
I think it was postseason or something like that, and they're considering this postseason. Right?
I'll shut up.
Whereas a lot of hockey fans are like, is this the postseason? I mean, I guess the season's over and this is what has come after it. So technically it's the postseason, but it's not the playoffs. So that record may or may not have an asterisk on it, depending on your opinion and your view of it. No one expected the Rangers to beat the Canes. At least I didn't, because I know how strong defensively the Canes are, and I know how quick they can strike. But I think having Hank start the games may have been a mistake. I don't know if he started today. I know he started game one, but I think that may have been a mistake. I think you got to I don't know why Shesterkin wasn't ready, but something's going up there, because then you're putting your team under the 8 ball.
Well, I'm surprised Lundqvist is even being mentioned, right? Because they're that team with the 3 goalie scenario. There's Georgiev still in the mix as well, correct? So,
Yeah,
like, I believe
Georgiev
he's
and
still
Shesterkin.
able to be played. It could be any one of those three that you could face. Are they not carrying all three in the playoffs right now?
I know at least one of them's been deemed unfit to play. So, and I don't know what that's
Okay,
about. It really
I
makes
got
no
to read up
sense
on
to
that.
me. Unless you have COVID, there is no reason for you to be unfit to play. In my opinion,
Fair enough.
you have had time to get ready, unless you are hurt. Which, if they're using unfit to play for someone who's hurt, that's BS, and they shouldn't. We've talked about that before. That should be the COVID diagnosis or the COVID designation. But yeah, it's really strange, and New York is looking at a quick exit here, and 12.5% chance that Mr. Alexis Lafreniere, while Carolina is moving on up and trying to make another run at the Stanley Cup after last year's run to the Eastern Conference Finals.
There's a team in the Rangers that have done a rebuild really well, right? They sent that message out to the fans and they said, listen, we're going to try to do a bit of a hybrid rebuild here. We're not trying to win any games in the next year or two. And fans accepted it. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they got Kako, amongst other good pieces they've put together on that team, right? Zibanejad. We could go on and on. We just talked about the young goaltender and Georgiev as a solid backup. And then could you imagine if they get kicked in this round and we know one of those teams that's going to exit the qualifier is going to be landing that first overall pick. That's the kind of team that you'd almost just nod your head and respect if they end up with Alexei Lafreniere. But do you see them winning a game? I feel like they're not going to go out in a sweep. I think the Rangers might have one or two in them here. Make it a big series, boys. Come on.
I mean, I don't know. I really don't. I think that being down to nothing, it's really easy to get on yourself and get down on yourself. I mean, um, I don't know if the Rangers can pull one out here. I hope they can to make it a little bit of a competitive series. But unless Artemi Panarin puts the team on his back and scores a hat trick or 4 goals or gets 2 goals and 3 assists and goes off. I just don't see it happening because the goaltending isn't there, and you're going to have to put up four goals on the Canes just to win.
Yeah, I think the one philosophy I'll have on this, the way that you look at a favorite like Pittsburgh going into a series now down a game and really needing to win their second game. Carolina's been the favorite the whole time, right? So I feel like the Rangers may have a bit of a not a hop in their step, but they might be still feeling a little bit ready to go to take one away from Carolina because again, you're not going to make it that easy on the favorite in the series, right? You're not going to let them take three that easy, right? Although on the other side, Carolina might be thinking, okay, we're sitting pretty here, boys. We got two early. Let's just take it easy. We don't want to hurt ourselves going into round one. We don't even know who we're playing yet, so let's take it easy. You never know. I could see the Rangers maybe stepping in and not having anything to lose, feeling a little bit better about themselves, and maybe squeaking one or two out there. But I'm not super positive. Just the way Carolina's taken the commanding lead in the series, and just the way they've played. Correct? Like they've been
Yeah,
all
well,
over them.
it the goaltending needs to be. Lundqvist needs to turn back the hands of time,
Just a
right?
couple years, not too far.
Yeah, we don't need 10 years. Just like maybe 3 years back to the Hank that was just coming off the Stanley Cup, or a couple years off the Stanley Cup appearance, and I you don't if you don't have goaltending in a 5-game series, man, it's like not having pitching in a 5-game series in baseball.
Yeah, I agree. It's you got it. The number one position, it wins out. If you don't have good goaltending, you're not getting very far. In another series, Winnipeg, they tied their series today against Calgary without 55. Scheifele's not in there, and we'll get into that controversy, I guess, in a minute. But I mean, Winnipeg looking good. They were up, or they were down 2-0 to start the game, right? And they clawed back. And then the last I heard, they score late to make it 3-2. So good for them. They finally get a grasp on the series. Correct me if I'm wrong, or was it the other way around? Did they have the lead the whole time and maybe gave up the lead to
Um,
Calgary? I'm starting to second guess myself. Either way, they pull it off.
I didn't watch the whole game, but I
It was
don't
tied
think.
late.
Yeah, it was tied. I don't think Winnipeg was trailing big in the game, like 2-0. I don't think they were
I
trailing two
believe that
nothing. I
was it.
think
Yeah, it was a
I thought it
2-0
was like
score
a
at one point.
1-1.
Okay,
But
okay. Listen to us
no,
arguing about
I
the
have no
score.
idea. That's
I
the
think I
problem. I was
saw.
watching the Raptors game.
And again, so much going on. Finally, sports are back, right? There's so much to digest here. Right now, behind me, I've got the New Orleans and Memphis Grizzlies game on. It's an 8th and a ninth seed battling for a final playoff spot potentially in the NBA in these final 8 games. So, tons to talk about here going on. But yeah, I believe the Winnipeg Jets were up 2-0 and let Calgary kind of squeak back. I think I had that backwards the first time I said it. But either way, they tie their series without Mark Scheifele. And you said to me earlier on in the weekend that the injury that we saw on opening night may not be as serious as we all thought. So is there still a chance he could be back in Game 3, or has that been next?
I haven't heard much on Scheifele other than the fact that it's not as serious of an injury
Okay.
as it once originally was thought to be, which everyone thought it was an Achilles. Getting back to the score, the Jets were up 1-0, and then Calgary took a 2-1 lead. So it
Oh,
was
that's it.
the Jets did score late though in the third to take the game 3-2
Okay.
and tie the series up. Getting back to the injury though, I you know how I feel about this. I've spoken to you
Oh, I lost you
all
there for
known
a
on
second.
Twitter.
Say that one more time. I know how you feel about it.
You know how I feel about that, Ryan. About the injury and the comments that came after the injury. I think I've made myself well known on Twitter, and now I'll make myself known here that I think Paul Maurice's comments were absolutely clown time. Like he should not have been doing that. I understand that he was angry, and I understand that he was trying to rally his team, but you're sewering a guy who already has a bad reputation, and now you're going to make it worse
Yeah.
by saying that this guy intentionally tried to go hurt his buddy, a dude he
I did
trains with in
notice.
the offseason.
Yeah, I
So
heard them say that, and I noticed in the clip that they were saying that. Look at Tkachuk going over to Scheifele and saying something because they train together. I noticed Scheifele either said nothing back or said something not great back because Tkachuk kind of turned his head and was like, okay, maybe another time. It seemed like they weren't ready to chat about that. The way that Scheifele was getting carried off, I did notice that clip. But here's the thing I want to say. Like, you're right. He is kind of using a guy with a reputation to take advantage of that. And I believe it's posturing, right? Like with a coach like Maurice, his tone, first of all, is kind of scary. No matter what he says, it's a little bit intimidating, right? He's got that real stone cold through those glasses, just he says whatever. And when he put it the way he did, it was very snide and very kind of aggressive. He's saying like this guy is intentionally trying to cut his Achilles, could have ended his career, right? He's kind of getting real deep into the point. And you're right, he's kind of romanticizing the idea, but I think a coach in that scenario, in a playoff scenario, they're it's like you're trying to get that one up. It's gamesmanship. And again, it's almost like Tortorella would say something similar to that in a Leaf series if he could use that against Toronto to like gain, even if it's a suspension. Like say Kadri's still on the Leafs and he does something questionable, Tortorella or any other coach in the league, it's just a bit of posturing. But you're right, he went above and beyond. He did the classic Maurice thing where it was like, wow, like you made that into a murder scenario when it was just kind of like a simple play. But to add one more thing to that, if what they're seeing on this blue line video is what we haven't seen, like that's the one kind of piece I'd like to see of all the puzzle we're trying to put together. Did he really intentionally kind of lift his leg up and kick him? Because it looked like he was just bouncing around on the ice the way he was kind of riding him into the boards and stopping. It did look like an innocent play, right?
well, here's the thing. I can tell you one thing Matt Tkachuk didn't do. He didn't make Scheifele turn up ice. And that's what put Scheifele's back leg in the precarious position.
It was
As
Scheifele's
much
decision there. Yeah.
as much as Tkachuk has to be responsible for his
Let me
skates,
fix my light here.
it is a 50-50 situation here where you cannot lay the blame on Tkachuk saying that this guy went out there trying to detrimentally or career-ending injure a player, a colleague, when there's no way you could calculate that with the way as fast as Tkachuk was moving towards Scheifele and as fast as Scheifele cut back and left his back leg exposed. There's no way you can calculate that to kick your skate out and meaningfully make contact. And the
Yeah.
fact that Paul Maurice did that, and this is where I'm going to get, I have a bigger issue with it, is he's now very passionate. He's gone and said it. He's doubled down on it. And he's got his team, Adam Lowry, more specifically, believing in this nonsense. And the problem I have with that is now that puts a massive target on Matt Tkachuk's back.
Right.
And what if one of them decides to put a stick in Tkachuk's neck and breaks his neck?
Yeah. Well, then you're going.
They're
Yeah.
taking revenge. I know I'm taking it, but look where Maurice took it.
I see.
Right?
I see.
I'm taking it the same place that Maurice took it. And it could happen because someone could snap. Someone could get very mad and accidents happen. I'm not saying someone's going to go out there and try and kill Matt Tkachuk, but someone might go out there and try and hurt him the way he hurt Scheifele if they
Yeah.
think that he did it purposely.
I think it's very similar to the Cassian scenario just before things all died down in the NHL, just with every sport, right? Where Tkachuk has kind of become the center of attention in a play that's injured not just I mean, Cassian wasn't a star player, but he's a key piece on a team, right? So he's not just a third or fourth line piece like a Zach Aston Reese when Wilson runs through him, and it's kind of not a big deal. We're talking Tkachuk likes to find guys that are able to kind of Scheifele isn't in the Doughty or Cassian or kind of dirty player range that they usually go after each other, right? So that was one thing that stood out to me is usually Tkachuk when he's trying to get someone, trying to get under the skin of a team, he's going after like the Doughty, the Cassian, right? I'm making a point where he's not going after a guy like Scheifele who's more of an elite offensive fourth. Those are the guys you don't touch, and like you said, he's supposedly buddies with them. So I doubt he's trying to injure him. But again, Tkachuk, similar to the Cassian situation, he's found himself right in the middle of a play that he caused an injury, right? And like you said, it may be Scheifele's turning up the boards that caused the most of it, but Maurice isn't going to sit there and let that opportunity go by the wayside. As a good coach in the NHL, he's posturing, right? He's doing everything he can to try to gain a suspension, some sort of advantage for his team, and if not, to get the guys like Adam Lowry and the rest of his boys on his side, knowing he's their coach, he's their boy, and he's looking out for them. He's ready to throw any other player in the league under the bus to protect the Jets, right? So I can see where Maurice is the kind of guy I like, right? But I can also see where it's upsetting you. I get that, man, because you're like, listen, this is going too far. This is going way too far. Tkachuk already has a reputation and a name for himself. I don't think this was dirty enough to kind of extend that, but you're taking an opportunity to extend that unfairly. Is that correct? That's the way you
Yeah.
see it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
100% how I see it.
but in a playoff scenario, I believe we're all going to look the other way and forget this ever happened. I think Scheifele and Tkachuk, like you said, they'll probably shake hands and be good. But if, like I mentioned before, if there was any bad blood and Scheifele had no business wanting to talk to Scheifele because he knows better and they are buddies and he knows the kind of player he is, maybe he's not willing to talk. And playoffs can stir up some serious emotions. Think of Crosby and PK Subban over the years, wheeling in. That got to a comical point, right? PK loves to make it more entertaining. But guys, like remember Mathot and Crosby chopping at was that not in the playoffs? Or think of even PK Subban and Hoffman. Somebody took a slash
Man.
and broke an arm. We're talking like reputations. They go AWOL in the playoffs, and guys forget about it after the fact because it's an extra level of play. It really is. I almost forgot about that Hoffman and was it Hoffman or Stone and Subban where he took a slash right in front of the net. It wasn't even called. He ends up they're posturing. It's a broken bone. Subban should be out of the series. Like that thing went AWOL, and we've all forgotten about it. So it's similar to that again to me. It's there's
I
a lot
remember
of
the thought one more than that, but holy
oh
Lord.
God. But it goes on and on,
Nasty.
right? Where you
Yeah.
get a lot of reputations get elevated in the playoffs, guys who are known to be Mr. Game 7, like different things. And again, they stick or they don't. But and one thing I'll draw out of this is Tkachuk doesn't just put a target on his own back. He puts the target on the back of his teammates. And he's got to learn he did fight his own battle again, but he's got to learn that sometimes playing with the edge that he plays with is very dangerous, not just to himself, but to his captain. Giordano's not going to want to step in and fight every day. Like there's guys, Goudreau's not going to want to skate around the ice with looking both ways. Why do you think his production's gone down? Like there's ways that
Can I just step in there
go
for
ahead.
1 second
Yeah.
and say anybody who goes after Giordano, he's like 40 years old. You're a pussy. You're a wuss. You're a wimp.
Absolute great point.
like go after someone who can you might actually eat one.
Yeah.
And be a man. If you're gonna fight, be a man and do it against someone who's not 20 years your senior. Like what the hell is that?
For sure. But I do remember seeing Tkachuk get himself in fights and Giordano and other guys on Calgary decide they're not going to stick up for him too. Especially in that Edmonton Cassian kind of debacle that went on this year. Like you saw guys on Calgary not wanting to stick up for Tkachuk already. And I remember Cam Jansen coming on first up. Shout out the hat I'm wearing here. We got when we went and saw them all live and we could do stuff like that. But Cam Jansen, who played on St. Louis with Tkachuk, saw those kids grow up, and he said, "I love those kids." But one thing I'll say to Matt Tkachuk is he really has to learn. Like there's more than just his own implications out there on the ice. He's either going to have a short career because he eats one, like you said. He'll fight his own battles. He fought Tkachuk, or if he fought Cassian. Those names are too close. But he fights his battles. And Cam Jansen said, "Hey, respect to that, but how short do you want your career to be? You're really important to your team. You get paid a lot. You get paid to score. So you're either going to stir things up and put a target on your own back and Goudreau's back and Giordano's back, which they already look like they're not liking it anymore. Like, you only can put up with that for so long. So again, Cam Jansen being somebody who really had a family connection with the Tkachuks, even as young kids said, I want that kid to learn, not in a hard way. I just want him to learn that there's some times you go too far and you're putting a target on everybody's back, not just your own. So it's interesting to watch. I love Tkachuk in every series, every game he plays. He's awesome to watch, but gets himself in too much trouble, man.
So how did Paul Maurice not get fined by the league for those comments? Can I
Playoffs,
just like I
playoffs,
mean
baby.
the PA should have been all over his ass for that. I mean, I swear, like it makes no sense to me. I can remember Paul Maurice in a press conference saying, "I'm not going to say that because I'm not going to give them money," and yet he goes way overboard in the playoffs.
Too funny.
Uh, I don't know. I just think if I was, okay, let me qualify this or whatever the word is.
Got you.
Um, if it continued past Coach Ward making his comments, then I think there would have been a fine. I think the NHL would have stepped in because they already decided that Matt Tkachuk did not commit a suspendable offense. And if the coach had kept, or like the Winnipeg coach Paul Maurice had kept it up, I think then we would have seen them step in, playoffs or not.
I agree. I agree. There's only so far you can take it, but I believe that's part of what Paul Maurice, I think that's part of his skill set is he knows what to say, when to say, how to say it. You're right. He is kind of getting away with a bit, but I'll argue it's the playoffs and I'm just glad sports are back. Let me see some rivalry. I think you want to see Calgary win the series now, don't you? You don't want to see Paul Maurice succeed. I can feel it.
Oh man, see, I love Connor Hellebuck.
He's probably the
Like,
best goalie in the league.
yeah, I love the guys on there, and I mean, Paul, he coached the Leafs, and it was just, I just it left a bad taste in my mouth. It's not that I don't want to see any team not win. I want to see competitive hockey. I want to see rivalry hockey, but
Yeah, good point.
when a line gets crossed like that, it needs to be called out. Kind of in the way Matthews called out Simmons last night.
Oh, like let's segue right into that because that's the aftermath of some stuff we'll talk about. I mean, Steve Simmons, let's just say I was never on his side, man. When that article came out, people were saying, "Oh no, the HIPAA's not a real thing." I know HIPAA's not, in pertaining to this situation, but he still kind of broke a bit of a code here, right? Like they were trying to keep guys anonymous in the NHL, and he went out of his way not only to break that story, but to link it back to the summer before. I remember him specifically saying, "Not a surprise that the kid who got himself into trouble last summer has found himself, contracting COVID-19." It's like, come on, Steve. The whole point of them making it anonymous was because you can't blame just a regular, I mean, the Mariners are a whole other situation, but you can't blame one guy for contracting COVID-19, man. We live in a significantly changed society here where there's no stigma to COVID-19, and he kind of went out of his way to make a report that created another, like a stigma of COVID-19. So that's the bad taste in my mouth that he kind of had created, and I was happy to see Matthews address that journalistic integrity. Whether or not you're on Simmons' side, like whether you think he can do that, I mean, there aren't any laws saying he can't, but I think I just spelled out a pretty solid point as to why guys didn't like what he did, and I just think he loved the attention last night, don't you? He was just happy to have his name all over once again.
Oh yeah, he definitely loved it. He didn't love it when Myrtle had posted the video, but then afterwards, I think today he tweeted something about being okay with what Austin Matthews said, so he completely walked back what he was saying to Myrtle. You know, it
He
is.
basically said Matthews isn't a journalist, he's a pro athlete, and if it wasn't for COVID, we would have already had a face-to-face conversation, as if he knows. You know what I mean? This guy can't get enough of himself. That's what his tweet basically said. Sorry to cut you off, but
Yeah,
he's
no,
just such a loser, man.
what I was gonna say is technically, like you said, Simmons didn't break any laws. He broke a code. He broke
Just
it's
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 respect.
like
It's
an
respect.
intangible thing, right? It's an
Yeah.
intangible thing. This was not
He
a
went
hockey
TMZ.
related injury. He knew that his main base was Toronto. This is where the story was going to hit first, and he knew that it was going to get clicks in so many of them. So
Yes.
that's exactly why he did it. So is he slimy? Yeah, but I mean, there are so many reporters out there that are so slimy that I mean, like just look at Fox News. He would be on the bottom of the totem pole at Fox News.
Yeah, but that's the thing is like we hold ourselves to a higher standard. We're talking about sports, you know what I mean? Like sports journalism. This guy just can't get enough of himself. He just he never made it, you know what I mean? And he decided I'll write instead. And that's he just cannot get enough of himself. It's so clear. But let's
You
actually
know what
talk
the
about
best part
go ahead.
about that scenario was Morgan Riley's face
Oh,
when he
he Yeah.
So Dean Blundell posted a 4-picture set of Morgan Riley, and it was the screenshot when Morgan heard Steve Simmons' name, the screenshot when he was looking over at Austin, the screenshot when he knew what Austin was going to say, and then the screenshot of after Austin was finished. And it was just hilariousness. It was great. So Morgan knew what was coming. Obviously, Austin had talked about it in the dressing room, so this is something he'd heard before. And yeah, he knew what was coming for Mr. Simmons in that press conference.
Just made it clear to me, it solidified that if anybody was arguing for Simmons back then, they knew nothing. They knew nothing about, like you said, it's, to me, it's whether you want to call it a code or whatever, it's like a respect thing. Like he went TMZ on this. He went total TMZ paparazzi on this, and he had to throw in the summer before just to remind everybody that Austin Matthews has done something that, you know, maybe wasn't great. You know what I mean? He just went total TMZ, disrespectful loser, and as if he thinks he can earn a question post game like that. Like you said, Morgan Riley looked at the guy like, "Are you stupid?"
The dude who handed Simmons the mic or whatever, or who allowed him to speak, had to know what was coming.
Are you
Had
stupid?
had to know what was coming. Like if that was me and I was the dude who was like, okay, yeah, you're up next, I would have let Simmons speak because I want that. That's an instant viral clip.
If you don't think Simmons isn't full of himself and just can't get enough of himself, just think back to every generation of Toronto Maple Leafs he's tried to leave his mark on. And it goes probably beyond my memory because I think back to him chirping Phaneuf, and I think back to him writing the article about Kessel. But do you remember when he was giving it to Phaneuf and Kessel was just like, this guy's an idiot. That's what that clip that's all played throughout Toronto radio. This guy's an idiot. You know, the one I'm talking about. It's when Simmons was grinding the gears of of Dion Phaneuf. Like we're talking 5, 6, 7 years ago. This guy, he tries to leave an imprint on every generation of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's not good. He doesn't belong here. And I think he likes being hated, right? Like he doesn't want friends.
Well, he basically works for a tabloid newspaper too,
It's
right? So
gross. He went TMZ. He went TMZ, but let's not go TMZ on the Maple Leafs because last
yeah,
night it
no.
was tough, man. I read a tweet from Nick D'Souza. One soft goal was the difference, and I couldn't help but call BS. Like more accurately, the one save that Korpisalo made, if you remember, on Matthews, high slot, very end of the second period, it was like a robbery. Best save of the game. And I believe that is the actual difference maker because the Toronto offense last night was gross. That was the only real 10 bells they should have guaranteed a goal chance on. Everything else was absolute garbage. I don't think the Marner, JT, Mikheyev line showed up whatsoever. And I think that third line, besides Matthews on the first, was really the best line, right? Nick Robertson in his debut, and I don't want to get too upset about this because they're going to learn real quick. Like the Columbus Blue Jackets are not a team to be reckoned with. And again, I wanted them way back before COVID to maybe learn some hard lessons and potentially not even make the playoffs, to maybe look themselves in the mirror and go, okay, like we got to maybe play a little differently. But here they are. They got a game tomorrow night or tomorrow afternoon. And if Marner and JT don't show up, what does the fan base do? Does it turn off of Freddie? Because I'm sick and tired of Freddie being the center of attention here. Do we start finally asking why $22 million on the second line does nothing? Like that's inconsistency that you cannot just disregard. I don't understand
So
where they were.
the best way I heard this explained was Ray Ferraro said Columbus played a pretty near perfect game.
Okay.
They did everything they needed to do to control the pace, and they did just enough to get the goal, whether it's a soft goal or not. So
Yeah,
my
poor Freddie.
question to you is how likely is it that Columbus plays a perfect game every game?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. But again, the way they play, man, they'll just close you out. Like Jeff O'Neill said on Overdrive today, very similar to trying to get by the New Jersey Devils,
It's
mid
similar to the
90s.
Bruins in their body. The way the
Yeah.
Bruins used to play the body. I don't know if I don't think they play that way now. But it's funny because when Columbus beat Boston in the exhibition, they out Boston to Boston. They beat them up and they outscored them, and so that's what it feels like right now playing Columbus. It feels a little bit like an older Boston team from a couple years back. But I think that the Leafs offense will get going. Whether or not we see Marner start with Matthews is a question I think we need to ask, and maybe we get the engine revving early and often. And then who fills in with Tavares and Mikheyev? I don't know. It needs to be someone fast, someone who can take some attention off of JT, because JT needs that in this later stage of his career. As much as he is still an elite level centerman, he doesn't have that kind of speed and elusiveness where he can get away from the
It's
defenders and the
showing.
back checkers.
It's showing
So
because
he
Columbus is
needs
super
someone.
quick.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm trying to hit home is, in the end, when you've gone out as Kyle Dubas, and I respect him for this, it's offense, right? They're not supposed to be in 0-1 games. They're not supposed to be in 2-1 tight games. The way this offense is supposed to work, regardless of how perfect a defense the other guys play, like, they're still supposed to score goals, because again, we know how shoddy the defense is and how really they did a little bit to try to make it tougher with Muzzin, but they're satisfied with kind of the puck moving ability against the physical capabilities, right? So we know how they see this team. And if they're going to get in themselves another 1-0 game tomorrow, it's not going to be good, man. I don't care how fast you make the line mates for JT, and I don't care how many chances you try to give Matthews. Like, the defense is shoddy on this team, and we know that. And Freddie Anderson letting in one goal that game, for somebody with 4,000 followers to claim to be a writer on Maple Leafs Nation, to say one soft goal is the difference. I'm like, dude, they got $40 million tied up in offense and a goaltender that's top 10 in the league, no problem, hands down, every season. Got them into the playoffs every year they've made it. So I don't understand. Like, one goal on Freddie Anderson is not the difference in a game. I don't care how good Columbus his defense is. Like, the way Marner was just chipping pucks in the corner, I thought he was a little bit creative. I thought he could do little sneaky moves and make plays, but it looked like he didn't care last night. And with JT, I don't understand how quickly it's become, we have to support this guy. We got to support this guy. Like, why are we making excuses for this guy already?
Got
Like,
to fix your mic. There
you're
you go.
not hearing me?
No, it was just a little quiet. I just
Okay,
didn't want it
perfect.
to continue that way.
That's great. Thanks for letting me know. But with JT, I don't understand why we'd be making excuses, right? They looked decent in the exhibition, and by every stretch, they looked good in training camps. But that first game last night, it brought me right back to that. Okay, they're not consistent. Like, 34 showed up, but 88 didn't. Like, 16 wasn't there. 91, I can't make an excuse. He wasn't really impactful at all. So I mean, who knew Columbus was the best defense in the league, and the Leafs are screwed? I guess this is going to be the hard lesson they learn. But on the bright side, as you said, if they slip up a little bit and they don't play the perfect game, we may see that Kyle Dubas Toronto Maple Leafs team. But I see a lot of blame going the wrong way. Again, as usual, these same people that are bitching about one soft goal, they're going to be happy when Jack Campbell finally starts a game. They'll be happy. They'll be happy. Watch the Leafs get lit up 6-1 tomorrow, and Jack Campbell starts game 3. Those guys will be pumped.
Yeah,
It's just I'm not too positive just after one game, and it's kind of tough.
this is the plague of Leaf Nation, or the bane of Leaf Nation. Bane of being a Leaf fan is you lose one game and all of a sudden you feel the series is already over, because we've had so much losing in our experience with losing throughout our lives. That's all we've really known. We've seen what you may not have even seen it. You may not have even seen it, but I remember seeing some great playoff matchups with the Ottawa Senators in
Oh yeah,
pre
definitely.
lockout
Yep.
stuff like that. But
I missed the
that was
93. I was born in 94, so I missed, any real greatness, the stuff we're trying to achieve again, right? I missed a lot of
yeah.
that. But yeah, I saw some of the Ottawa stuff, beating Lalim, and then moving on and getting dusted by Philly every time, right?
Yes, yeah, that was something else.
Or New Jersey.
Uh, they never got too far, but it was nice to see him win a couple series, right? And it's something that the Leafs need to get back to. I think that I have, not even think. I know I have optimism that the Leafs will get this next one tomorrow.
You got it. Okay.
Freddie played fantastic last night, and anybody who thinks otherwise, come find me.
Here's the thing.
Seriously,
The
because
people that are critical of him, they hear Kelly Hrudey say one thing on the broadcast. They hear him say, "Oh, Freddie Anderson's going to want that one back." And it's true. It's absolutely true. He's going to want that one back. But then it turns into Maple Leafs Twitter going, "Well, one soft goal was a difference tonight." I'm sorry. No, just because you heard Kelly Hrudey say that doesn't mean Freddie Anderson was the difference tonight. Okay? The difference was the offense that's supposed to win out in 1-0 games, 2-1 games wasn't there. They didn't show up. It's that simple.
I would like somebody who speaks that way about Freddie Anderson to strap the pads on and go and try and save a puck in that specific spot, in the proverbial 16 hole where that
It
puck
was a
went
tough
in.
one. The way
Um,
Atkinson flies down the lane too. He's
yeah,
quick.
well, I mean, it's a spot where there's barely any padding. You got some jersey, right? So if you don't close it all the way, it's going straight through the jersey and it's going to flop through, right? So
Yeah.
I understand it is a bad goal when you're looking at the realm of Connor McDavid mastery versus some garbage, but
Yeah.
it's not the worst goal we've ever seen Freddie give up. It's nowhere near the worst goal we've seen scored in the NHL in any sort of playoff. And Leafs fans just need to get off his back and do some bloody research as to what this guy has done for this franchise since the trade, since he's been here. He has dragged this team to the playoffs,
Yeah.
kicking and screaming for years. And now, because you've got a guy who could possibly start 20 games a year, he's all of a sudden the second coming and he has to take over. No, that's not the answer.
Yeah.
Jack Campbell knows that's not the answer. Keefe knows that's not the answer, and Freddie knows that's not the answer, and that's all that really matters.
Let me add though.
And
Sorry,
yeah,
go ahead. I was gonna say, let me
no,
add.
go
Like,
ahead.
I make it sound like I don't like Jack Campbell too. I realize that. Oh, by the way, like as I chirp Tavares, I'm wearing the 91. Like, I love the guy. I love the guy. But where were you, right? The thing is, I make it sound like I don't like Jack Campbell, and I loved every start he had. But Freddie Anderson is better, and I can't help but call out the BS when I see like one soft goal is the difference tonight. It's like you're not trying to do damage control on Twitter. Just don't tweet it if it's going to be inaccurate. Like, that's not true. You've got at 5,000 followers and you claim to be a writer at theleafnation.com. I don't want to see that. I don't. It wasn't on one soft goal. I believe the difference was, as I said, although they couldn't get any offense going, that huge save on Matthews, and he was the guy. He was going to get them a goal. He was so damn close. So many times he hit a crossbar, and on the play I'm talking about, he was robbed at the top of the slot. I can't remember who centered it out. It might have been Hyman, just working hard behind the net, just flicked it out front, and it found a way. And there was I think there's less than 2 minutes to go in the second in a 0-0 game. And you're going, that's the one. That would have got it. That would have given them all they needed. And Columbus happens to be the team scoring right away in the third. They get their legs, right? You see how much faster they got? They're all over the boys, and their pressure. Offensive, like the forecheck was nuts. Like, you could not get the puck out of the Leaf zone. Barry's turnovers were gross. I think,
I hate Tyson Barrie. Can I
oh,
just say that?
every time I'd see a guy send it back to him, like D to D in his own zone, and I'm thinking, oh my God, look at the Columbus pressure. Boom, all over him. He turns it over. It's brutal. But again, Tortorella coaches just a fine game. They're similar to Vegas, where it's will versus skill. And I think, like, again, all of that skill is tied up in all that money, all offense, and you score this many goals in a playoff game. You can't turn around and ask your goalie to do anything more. I'm sorry, he should have let in more than that one. Freddie, late in the game, I remember Kelly Rudy saying, "Remember this one," because he just made a huge save out of nowhere. And if the Leafs had scored in the remaining minutes, that's TSN turning point. Freddie Anderson saves the day with a big, you know what I mean? So, oh man, that's the one thing I will not raise my children to be goaltenders, because they don't ever get the credit they deserve. Thankfully, once you become Team Canada, Carey Price, you never live down that reputation. But beyond that, it's tough. It is so tough.
Man, one of the best quotes I've ever heard, and I'm gonna butcher it, and I don't know who said it, but it was a former NHL goaltender, and he's just like, if you think your job and your life is hard, try having a red light go off and 15,000 people boo at you when you make a mistake.
Yeah, brutal, brutal. This ain't no
Right?
assembly line, homie.
Like,
This ain't no
it's
red lighted assembly line.
it really sucks. And speaking to that Leafs Twitter, that was low hanging fruit. That's why they did it. They knew they would get the clicks. They knew they'd get the response. They knew they'd get the likes, and they get Leafs Nation and Leafs Twitter going. And it's not as bad as what Steve Simmons does, but it's on the same tree as what Steve Simmons did.
I find a lot of people that want to talk hockey are just a little bit misinformed. And I don't know everything, but I seem to have, we have our finger on the pulse here a little bit. And when some people say stuff, you know what I'm talking about, you kind of go, like, quit clicking on those tweets, buddy. Like, just, it's similar to your parents and Facebook and sharing things that, they shouldn't be sharing, but it's
That's
their
it. Yeah.
age. It's their age, and they can't help themselves.
Stop
Moving
falling for
on.
the fake news.
Moving on. Before we do, though, 4 p.m. tomorrow. I'm not super positive, but like you said, you're kind of giving me a bit of hope just based on maybe Columbus, doesn't play that same perfect game, but they played great. We'll move on. We'll get into some MLB talk because you're going to be my expert here. I'm not super read up on MLB news, and I know the Jays are kind of still sitting at home, so I have to ask you some questions and just kind of fly by night here. Like John, when are we playing again? When's do we have any idea and who the next opponent may be? Do we have a series lined up? What's going on with the Jays?
Yeah, the Blue Jays, I believe, play tomorrow. I don't know
Okay.
against who. I'm just looking it
As
up
long hey,
now.
as long as we know there's going to
Yes.
be baseball.
So against Atlanta tomorrow. They're probably already in Atlanta, or Atlanta's. No, yeah, they'd be in Atlanta because it would be an away series.
Fair
So
enough.
they're already over there in Atlanta. And that hasn't been postponed, although there have been some reports out that Atlanta has been the source of some people contracting the virus. Cough, cough, Miami, cough, cough. Strip club.
Whatever
Um,
that palace is called, Magic
whatever
Palace.
the magic wings or whatever. Yeah, it's funny because Derek Jeter came out today and
I saw that.
he's just like, it wasn't a bunch of our players who were being reckless. It was a couple of guys who went out, and it wasn't to go to bars or clubs. And he's like, it was more or less our traveling members of our traveling party who had a false sense of security.
Whatever that means.
So I'm guessing non-maskers. He had some people on the staff who were like believing Donald Trump and his crap.
Okay.
And they people are idiots, right? And they try and stretch until they get smacked in the face. And this was a real big smack to the Marlins. But there is some good news coming out of Miami.
Okay.
No positive tests today from the Marlins.
All right.
So they are on the mend, on the comeback here. We'll see if they can get fully healthy, but some bad news as well coming
Yeah.
out of St. Louis with 13 positive tests, and I believe that's 9 players, and the rest are staff who have tested positive. The series against the Brewers, I believe it was, has been canceled for the season, or for the series, or postponed. And they're saying something around, they're going to have to make up somewhere around 7 games because of this outbreak. And that could count up and up depending on who, or if the tests keep coming positive. And on another positive, the Philadelphia Phillies, no one tested positive from that team as well.
Okay, so we're moving in the right direction. You're reminding me of the conversation we had before where in their Korean baseball, some league in Korea, they started up, they had some obstacles, they shut down, they were able to start back up and they're good. So although it's not really happening at the same time, like the league isn't shutting down. We've kind of got teams that are taking a break for a minute, starting back up. It's not, that's where again, my positivity is starting to go out the window because it's like, all right, like it's starting, as you see more teams, you start to get more worried. And I mean, I felt the same thing from you because I'll get a voice message from you saying the MLB can't continue, right? And I'll say the same thing. Yeah, like they're got to shut down. There's no way another team, another 13 players, but at the same time, they're revealing, okay, well, this team's actually good now. So it's like we're just exchanging teams. Every once in a while, we're going to flip a team out for a new one. These guys in their series are postponed. These guys are playing. Will we have enough time to make it all up? I'm kind of curious. I'm starting to get a bit more. Again, that's my theme of the show: positivity, negativity. Which way is the needle today? And it's okay if we're starting to see the theme with the Marlins or teams, I should say, that have tested positive now testing negative already. Are we starting to move towards back, to, to playing baseball without this issue? I don't know because the MLB, we talked about it last show, they don't have a bubble. So how many times are you going to like? Who's to say a team isn't going to start testing negative for a couple of weeks and then as soon as things start get rolling, they test positive again because they get reckless? Who's to say
Yeah.
that isn't going to happen without a bubble?
Yeah, it's really strange why MLB chose not to go with it, a bubble. The PA denied it on the first attempt, and then they just let it die away. I don't know why you wouldn't push that harder, but that's out the window now. That won't happen. what I find interesting is if another team tests positive and you have to shut down another set of games, then right now I believe we're looking at 8 or 9 teams who have been affected. The Blue Jays being one of them, Nationals, Phillies, Marlins, Yankees, Orioles,
Half
Cardinals,
the league.
Brewers, and so now like it seems kind of foolish that I'm naming all of these teams and they're going to shut down one at a time to kind of try and fight this virus off. I think this is something that Major League Baseball is going to try and push through as much as they can. And
It's
there's going to be
crazy.
a gigantic asterisk on this commissioner's trophy if it does indeed get awarded, because there's no way that you can look at this and say that the best of the best were competing in at the top of their abilities for even a half of a season or a third of a season that we were seeing here. Some more craziness though. In the world of baseball, I don't know if you heard about Yoenis Cespedes,
Oh
but
yeah, fill me in on this because the tweet or the screenshot I took to remind myself, I forgot to open that up when I was making my notes today. He fled, like he disappeared out of nowhere, left
yeah,
his hotel.
yeah, okay.
What's going on,
So
Johnny?
here's what went down. Apparently, Yoenis Cespedes decided halfway through a game that he was going to opt out of the season. He had made this decision. This was a game the Mets were losing, by the way, and the Mets hadn't had the greatest start to the season. Also, you're seeing the Marlins test pop positive a bunch, and you're seeing the the Cardinals and the Phillies. So maybe he's a little bit scared, but he had decided that he was going to opt out, and so he hung around in the clubhouse. He said his goodbyes, but he never conveyed that to management.
Right.
He did tell his agent, but he didn't convey it to management. Um, so fast forward a day, it's game time. There's no Yoenis Cespedes, and apparently the Mets did know what was going on, but Yoenis hadn't talked to them. So
Yeah.
they sent out a tweet saying that Yoenis Cespedes hadn't been seen and blah blah blah, and got everybody on alert here. Like
Yeah.
after what happened to Skaggs, right? You have a baseball player not show up out of nowhere.
I never thought of that, John.
I mean, that sent everybody haywire, and that was dirty pool by the Mets because they knew what was going on. But yeah, so the Mets sent someone to his room, and he wasn't there. His belongings were gone, everything, room emptied out. The dude
Fled.
flew home in the middle of the night.
Oh, he
Gone.
clearly didn't want to be there, John. Like that's a strategic escape. So, man, I guess whatever happened to Cespedes too, because I feel like he hasn't been as impactful in the last couple of years, right? Wasn't he
He
just
got hurt.
he was huge in Oakland, no?
He was huge in Oakland. He was huge in Boston. He went over to I can't believe he played for another team between the Mets. But when he went to the Mets, he was pretty good. But then he got hurt, and he kept getting hurt. I remember he had an injury where he was riding a horse on his ranch and he broke both his ankles.
Okay, that I was unsure, but this confirms he's the guy that rode into training camp on a white horse.
Yes, and he also rode into training camp on
What a
like
guy.
he rode into training camp on like a quad and like this three-wheeler razor
As you
thing, and
grow.
then it's like these ridiculous Lamborghinis,
Oh
and
my.
this was spring training. This wasn't like he was
Yeah.
showing up to regular. He was showing up to spring train and flexing hard.
Yeah, like that's money for you, right? Holy. That's why I'm wondering whatever happened to him because I remember him being a big story. It was like, what the hell? This guy's riding into camp on a white horse. Just a big
Man,
elegant horse.
he still mashes homers. He's just I don't know if he just doesn't want to play for the Mets
He
anymore,
gone now.
or what's going on with that situation, but he can still hit homers. I watched the one game where the Mets beat the Atlanta Braves 12-3, and Cespedes was a big part of that. And I just don't know what's going on there. I always romanticized Cespedes. I always loved that power bat. I mean, imagine that kind of a bat in a small ballpark like Toronto. Oh my goodness.
Update: Pittsburgh is up 1-0 on Montreal.
Oh,
15 minutes into the first here, and Vegas just scored to tie it up. We're only 10 minutes, 7.5 left in the third. Vegas and Dallas are tied. That's not as important. I meant to say when we were on the NHL, Vegas and Dallas are playing, and we don't really care too much about round robins unless we, are watching the Bruins get dusted, which it was nice to see But yeah, man, we'll move on to the NBA because I think we've got the MLB sorted out. I'm glad you had some information for me because I wasn't sure when the Jays were going to play next, who they're playing. I didn't really think the MLB could keep this charade up, but because day by day it's looking more like it's got to shut down. But the lack of bubble, it's we're starting to get somewhere, I guess, if we're going to exchange one team for another and continue to push through. But as you said, the asterisk on the season, it's going to be nuts. Imagine the team that wins this is one that's really had a drought or really needed one. It would be too bad. So
Yeah. Last point on baseball. It was really funny when Charlie Montoya was asked about the continuation of the baseball season. It was a few days back at a press conference. He simply stood up and revealed his shirt that says, "We're not quitters."
there you go. I like the passion, right? Hey, it's their sport. It's their passion. They're getting paid, and it's what they do. It's how they identify. So, hell, man, if I couldn't, do my thing, I'd be bummed out too. So you want to be passionate about something, and I'm glad that they actually can play. But it's just you wish the MLB had done this in a better way. We'll keep trying to drive home that point. If they just designated some sort of a bubble, or
You
tried,
know what? You know what?
what's up,
Why wouldn't they just go to Puerto Rico or something
somewhere that's really not
and
affected.
do the season there? Bring the entire so you have everyone over to Puerto Rico. There's enough ballparks over there.
We should.
Like
I might write that down and look into that. Maybe we'll discuss that next pod. We'll see how far we
like
can get into that. If we'd actually have moved the MLB to a completely different country, one unaffected by COVID altogether, like we're very very little. One that you'd be surprised to
well,
see professional
one
baseball in.
one where the population at the very least is much less, right?
Okay.
So
I like your
yeah.
thinking there. Interesting. Fill me in again on the NBA. We've got a little bit of time left. We got the Raptors return to play. Did they spank the Lakers on Saturday night or what? Was that a,
Oh
a
yeah.
big win?
Oh,
Okay.
oh my goodness. That
Too
was a
busy watching
whooping.
hockey.
That was a whooping, man.
Okay.
I was so good that LeBron James made comments after the game praising the
Oh, I
Raptors
saw those.
and how good they
Yeah.
were. And no matter what the media had to say, everybody in the NBA knew how dangerous the Toronto Raptors were.
Hell yeah.
So, on top of that, I clocked our boy LeBron singing the Canadian national anthem
Ooh,
before that game. So,
right on.
he knows the Canadian national anthem. That's a win for Canada. I don't know if that means he wants to come play in Canada in 2023, but he's always welcome. He's always welcome. I'll take 55-year-old LeBron.
That'd be
Like
funny.
I don't care how old he is. You can be the king of Canada for a year for all I care. I think he'd love to come play with this squad, specifically the one he's got right now. I know he's got some good guys over there, Anthony Davis and Kuzma, and oh man, why is this? Dwight Howard is a decent center down there, but you got to be kind of jealous, right? To think what and also it's like just to see what Kawhi did with this team,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I
As
was
much
gonna
as we
say Kawhi already brought us our chip, but hey, I'd be really pushing for LeBron in 2020. You said 23. If we
yeah.
didn't already have our chip, maybe he'd want to come and bring that legend up here and grow it.
Well, that's the thing, man. Like, I think that once you see what this team can do with Kawhi, and now see what they can do without Kawhi, then you know the legitimacy of
Yeah.
the team,
And
right?
that's kind of what
And
LeBron was getting
yeah,
at too. He was saying, regardless of what media says, man, these guys know what they're doing. They're a tough team to play against. Like they might have lost Kawhi, but they're still highly highly regarded. Like
in today's game against the Heat, the Raptors had a 15-point lead. The Heat came all the way back.
yes,
They took the lead. And then the Raptors turned on the defense, which is
Fred.
what wins championship. Yes, Fred was outstanding. He was 7 for 12 from 3-point range,
Money.
just shooting the lights out from beyond the arc. But the defense is what won the game for them. Now there was a flagrant foul, one called. Kyle Lowry got scraped in the eyes. There was a play earlier in the game where the name is escaping me. Goran Dragic, he reached out and he hooked OG Anunoby's leg and stopped tripped him, and they didn't call it a flagrant, which it is a flagrant, even though he didn't get hurt. But because Kyle got his eyes scraped and they deemed that could have been serious, they gave him the flagrant on that one, but people were saying that it was just a makeup call. But yeah, to me, it was the defense that won it for them because the Heat were having a heck of a time scoring in the paint. They were having a heck of a time rebounding the ball in the final 5 minutes of the game. The Raptors just shut it down, and defense wins championships, man.
Solid. And back to Fred, career high 36 points for him too. So he was just on another
Yes.
level today. I wanted to talk a little bit about opening night because this was a couple of days ago too. I was at the trailer, Johnny. We should have done a pod, but I couldn't have done it. I had no service. It's too bad. But the minutes limit, that was kind of tough to see. That was what I wanted to talk about with Zion because it kind of ended up mattering, in that opening night. He was pretty hot when he was playing. But then the Utah Jazz ended up sneaking back and coming back. Rudy Gobert was fire. Ended up having the first 2 baskets of the restart of the NBA, of course. But with Zion sitting on the bench, it was like, oh, I know minutes limits are minutes limits, but like it matters in literally the very first game. I don't want to say it's going to cause problems, but we're sitting here. There's only 6 games left, I think, for New Orleans. They got to win pretty. You said it before. They got to win every game here if they're going to try to make it in the playoffs. Redick was on fire that game too. I couldn't believe you got a minutes limit for like Zion. We haven't played in God, who knows how long, right? So play the guy and win the games you need. But oh well,
So
that's learning. That's being a young player. And I guess if you're not trying to win now, you don't expect to win. The Larry will be. You're not the Lakers. You're not the Clippers coming out of the West. I guess it's easier said than done. Me sitting here in my basement wanting Zion to play more minutes.
So I understand where you're coming from with the minutes limit thing. If you remember, I'm looking at the stats right now for the
Oh, yeah.
Pelicans. Because I want to see exactly how much Zion is crushing it, and he's crushing it tonight. Let me just tell you that.
They're up by 10, I think, are they? I just
Uh,
checked.
the Pels, I
Yeah,
believe,
88, 78, 10 minutes to go.
I have 97-90
Oh, yeah, it just
with
populated with 5 to go.
4 minutes 57, 97-90. Zion's got 17.7 boards, 5 assists.
Let's go.
He's got 7 of 18 field goals made. He's even attempted a 3-pointer, and he's 3 of 6 from the line. So no minutes restrictions with 20 minutes and 38 seconds played tonight for Zion. But what hurt me the most on that opening night was seeing Zion sit in the final 2 minutes of the game. I'm like, what's that?
Why?
What's like this guy has been I believe he was 6 for 6 that night from the field,
Hot. Yeah.
or 7 for 8, something crazy. And my thing is like, why are you not letting this guy out and take the leash off for the final 2 bloody minutes of the game?
Yeah.
Like, you were down 2 points. Put this guy in the paint. They couldn't stop anyone in the paint. The Jazz were just driving and they were taking advantage. And if you put the big man there, then you give him a little bit of trouble. I don't know what they were doing, but
And even if he's got a minutes limit, why don't you be a little more strategic and make sure he's going to be playing in the final minutes of the game?
Yeah.
Why burn him early?
Yeah, that made no sense too.
I'm like, okay, I get it. There's sports science here, and like I said before, if you're not a Clipper or a Laker, you really could care less right now. It's just for fun. It's just like that's who we got coming out of the West. If you got somebody different, I'll beg to challenge you because I think those teams are the hottest. That was the second game, and it was a wicked matchup too. But again, it's like, dude, you wish they were a little more strategic so they had a chance. But yeah, good for Rudy Gobert. He solidifies. I think he was kind of the major factor for Utah in that win. But I wanted to talk. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, before we get out of the Pelicans, everyone knows Zion. They know Brandon Ingram. We know Drew Holiday. We even know JJ Redick. But there's a name that you don't know that you need to pay attention to that will be key to this team making the playoffs. And that is Josh Hart. Josh Hart was great leading up to the stoppage, and he has picked up his play. He's played fantastic. And tonight he's got 15 points and 7 boards. 5 for 6 from the field, shooting 83%. So
Beautiful.
Josh Hart, got to look out for that a name that you might not be or you might not know on the Pelicans.
All right, right on, dude. Well, I'll be honest with you. I spent the weekend at the trailer. I am starting to fade. I think we touched most of the things that we were supposed to talk on here. But when we part here, I'm hoping you're checking out on the Montreal Pittsburgh game because that's the big one for me. Again, Edmonton, Chicago at 10:30 tonight. So let's keep an eye on those. And then maybe tomorrow after that Leafs game, we might get back in touch. Maybe we'll try to sit down and do another post-mortem. We'll try to, hey, do you want to do that? Break down a quick, maybe 20-minute video after every Leaf game, provided it's not over too late.
Yeah, hopefully it's not over too early. That's my thing.
I know.
By that I mean
done too quick.
Yeah, two games. I don't want to be doing 3 postmortems. I want to do 14. I want to be talking about the Leafs in the Stanley Cup Finals. But yes, we'll definitely get back on this Zoom chat and break down exactly what went on in Toronto tomorrow
yeah.
after the game, Columbus Blue Jackets.
Good stuff. Yeah, it was a dirty out. It was a dirty out by me. I'm all over the place here. But again, we'll get back together after the game. Hopefully it's a good result because, like you said, I don't want to be 3 games breaking it down and out of here. And I want to be invested, man. I want to see the Leafs in the first round. We don't even know who they're going to play yet. But take care, man. You have a good rest of your night, and we'll talk tomorrow, I guess.
Yes, buddy. We'll talk tomorrow. Have a good night.
Peace out.
Peace.
Take care, man. See ya.